I thought I knew her. 10 years by her side. Every sunrise, every struggle. But one morning, I woke up, and she was gone. No warning. No goodbye. Just an empty house. And a note that changed everything. People say you can live your whole life with someone and still never truly know who they are. I never believed that. Not until the day my world fell apart. My name is Daniel. And for a long time, I thought I had everything a man could ask for. A loving wife. A home we built together, and a dream we chased side by side. That I met Emily in college. She had that kind of laugh that could pull you out of the darkest day. She was kind, curious, and a little mysterious. The kind of person who made you want to be better, just to deserve her. Back then, I was a nobody. A broke student with big dreams and a stubborn heart. But she believed in me when no one else did. We started small, long nights at coffee shops, studying, dreaming, and planning a future neither of us could really afford. When I told her I wanted to start my own business, she didn't laugh. She smiled and said, "Then let's build it together." And we did. Those early years weren't easy. We shared everything, a tiny apartment, cheap meals, broken furniture. But every struggle felt worth it because we had each other. Slowly, things got better. The business grew. Clients came in. We bought our first little house, nothing fancy, but it was ours. I still remember that night we moved in. No furniture, just 2 mattresses and pizza on the floor. Emily looked around the empty room, smiled, and whispered, "We did it, Daniel." I thought that was the start of forever. For years, we built everything side by side. She handled the accounts, the clients, the planning. I worked the long hours, trying to make sure she never had to worry again. And for a while, life was good. We took small trips, hosted dinner parties, laughed over burnt pancakes on Sunday mornings. Everyone said we were the perfect couple. And maybe that's why I didn't see the cracks forming. It started small. Emily began working late, just a few more things to finish. Her phone was always in her hand, but never pointed my way. She started changing her passwords, something we'd never done before. At first, I brushed it off. Love makes you trust even when something feels wrong. But one night, I saw her smile at her phone, a smile I hadn't seen in months. And before I could ask who she was texting, she turned the screen away. That's when I felt it. The quiet distance. The space between us that didn't used to exist. I tried to bring her back. Dinners, small surprises, little notes like we used to leave each other. But her laughter sounded different now, polite, not warm. Her hugs ended too soon. Her eyes wandered somewhere else. Still I held on. Because you don't just walk away from 10 years of love. You fight for it, even when it's slipping through your fingers. One evening, I asked her softly, "Emily, are we okay?" She looked up from her phone, smiled faintly, and said, "Of course, Daniel. You worry too much." Then she kissed my cheek and walked away. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Because deep down, I knew she was already gone. Just not physically yet. It was a Monday morning. The kind that starts like any other, coffee brewing, birds outside, soft light through the curtains. But something felt off. The bed beside me was cold. The closet door was open. I got up, still half asleep, and froze. Her clothes, gone. The jewelry box, empty. The bathroom shelf cleared. I called her name, thinking maybe she was in the kitchen. Nothing. Just silence. Then I saw it, a folded piece of paper on the table. My name written in her handwriting. I picked it up. My hands were shaking before I even opened it. "I'm sorry, Daniel. But this isn't the life I want anymore." That was it. No reason, no goodbye. Just a sentence that ended 10 years of my life. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes? Hours? The walls felt smaller, the air heavier. I called her, no answer. I messaged, emailed, begged for a response. Nothing. When I walked into her office, the drawers were empty. Even the framed photo of our wedding, gone. It was as if she'd erased herself from every corner of my world. I sat on the floor, surrounded by memories that no longer meant anything. Every laugh, every promise, every plan, gone in a single morning. That's when I noticed something else. Our joint bank app, locked. My access revoked. And the documents for our business, missing from my laptop. That's when the panic turned into realization. This wasn't a sudden decision. It was a plan. She hadn't just left. She'd been preparing for months, and I never saw it. I replayed every late night, every secret call, every "I'm just tired." All the signs were there, and I ignored them because I trusted her. And now, standing in that empty house, surrounded by the ghost of everything we built, I finally understood. She didn't just leave me. She took everything. When Emily walked out, I thought the worst part was losing her. But I was wrong. The worst part was finding out who she really was. 3 days after she left, I got a knock on the door. A courier stood there, holding a thick white envelope. My name on the front. Her name on the back. Inside were pages and pages of words that made my hands tremble. Divorce papers. But not just that. According to those papers, Emily wasn't just leaving me. She was taking everything. Our house, our savings, even the business we built together, and, to make it worse, she accused me of things I never imagined. Hearing about myself, she claimed I was controlling, manipulative. That, I didn't let her live freely. Reading. Those words felt like being punched in the chest. Because I wasn't reading about me. I was reading about a stranger she invented. At first, I thought there had been some kind of mistake. Maybe her lawyer misunderstood. Maybe she'd come back and explain. So I called her. Again, no answer. I sent her an email, a message, anything I could think of. Still silence. Days passed, and then the whispers started. People I'd known for years began to avoid me. Friends who used to visit stopped calling. When I finally saw one of them, Mark, a friend from college, he looked uncomfortable, like he didn't even want to talk. He said quietly, "Daniel, I'm sorry, man. But people are saying some things. Emily told us you treated her badly, that you kept her from her friends, controlled her money." I felt my heart drop. Controlled her? I gave her everything. Every decision, every account, every plan. She was part of it all. But no one wanted to hear that. They already believed her version. It got worse. Our clients started pulling out of contracts. Some said they didn't want to be involved in personal drama. Others didn't even call back. Within weeks, my company, the one we built from the ground up, began to crumble. I had to let go of employees, shut down projects, and watch everything I loved fall apart. Everywhere I turned, there was another piece of my life breaking off. It wasn't just a divorce. It was a demolition. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. Not the woman I married, but the woman who destroyed everything. Then came the day that ended any hope. I had left. A friend from Emily's old workplace reached out, someone who couldn't stand seeing me suffer. They told me something I didn't want to believe. Emily hadn't left because she was unhappy. She left because she'd found someone else. His name was Alex, her coworker. They'd been close for over a year. Late meetings, work trips, sudden dinners, all of it made sense now. I remember staring at her old photos, wondering how long she'd been pretending. Every "I love you," every "we'll get through this." All lies. That night I couldn't hold it together anymore. I sat on the floor of that empty house, the same one where we once dreamed about forever, and cried until I couldn't breathe. How could someone I trusted with everything twist my life into a story where I was the villain? I kept asking myself, what did I do wrong? Was I blind? Was I foolish? But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't a sudden betrayal. This was a plan. She didn't walk away impulsively. She walked away prepared, calculated, cold. Looking back, the clues were there all along. The late nights. The locked phone. The new perfume she said a friend gave her. The days she came home smiling for no reason, like she was living another life I wasn't part of. Every time I asked, she said I was overthinking. And I believed her. Because love makes you deaf to truth and blind to proof. Now, I realized she'd been building her escape while pretending to hold my hand. The next few days, I couldn't focus on anything. I barely left the house. Until one night, while sorting through old emails for tax records, I noticed something strange. Our shared cloud account, the one we used for work, was still active. Curiosity got the better of me. I clicked through, not expecting much. Most folders were empty, deleted, but one caught my eye, an old backup labeled Personal Files. Inside, I found screenshots, notes, and drafts, things that made my stomach turn. Emails to her lawyer, written months before she left. Documents transferring business ownerships in her name. Even messages between her and Alex. Once everything's settled, we'll finally be free. Free, that's the word she used. Free from me. I sat there staring at that screen, hands shaking, heart numb. She hadn't just taken what we built. She'd rewritten our history. At that moment, I could have broken down completely. But something inside me changed. The sadness began to fade, replaced by a calm I hadn't felt in months, because finally I had the truth. And the truth doesn't shout. It doesn't fight back. It just waits, patiently, until it's time to be heard. So I saved everything, every message, every email, every trace of her plan. I didn't know what I'd do next, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to beg for justice. I was going to prove it. That night, I looked around my half-empty apartment and whispered to myself. That was the moment I decided. The truth would speak for itself. I used to think heartbreak was the end of a story. I learned it can also be the start of a plan. That morning, I spread every document I had across my small kitchen table: bank statements, email printouts, phone records, even old receipts. 10 years of a life, scattered like puzzle pieces. I was done crying. I was done asking why. I wanted proof. I wanted the truth to stand on its own feet, but I knew I couldn't do it alone. The first lawyer I spoke to told me to settle and move on. I walked out. The second Ava Morgan didn't interrupt me. She listened. She took notes. She asked careful questions. When I told her about the files on the shared cloud, her eyes narrowed, not with doubt, but with focus. "Daniel," she said, "if what you're saying is accurate, this isn't just a messy separation. This is a plan to move assets, change narratives, and control outcomes. We don't scream when we fight this. We document. We timestamp. We prove." For the first time in months, I felt the ground under my feet. Ava gave me a checklist. Pull your bank logs going back 18 months. Credit card statements. Email logins. Any digital trail you can legally access. And Daniel, back up everything, twice. I went home and started working like a man building a bridge out of a storm. Numbers. Tell stories people try to hide. I traced transfers. From our joint account to a new savings account I didn't recognize. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. Regular, quiet, careful like drops of water carving stone. There were payments to services I'd never heard of. A private mailbox. A storage unit. A consultation fee to a document service. The dates lined up perfectly with the weeks. Emily started coming home late. I pulled our email logs. I found drafts that weren't sent from her main address, but saved on the shared cloud by accident. Drafts to a lawyer. Drafts to Alex. Notes like, "Once the house deed reflects my name." Final step is the account. I took screenshots. I made folders. I printed hard copies. I saved them to a drive and locked it in a safe deposit box. Ava's voice kept repeating in my head, "Don't argue opinions. Present facts." The house was my pride. I'd signed a stack of papers when we refinanced last year, but I knew every page. I remembered that day. I remembered the pen. I remembered the handshake. So when I found a property transfer authorization, dated 2 months after that day with a signature that looked like mine, my stomach dropped. It was close. Very close. But it wasn't mine. I put the document under a lamp, tilted it, stared at the strokes. My name curved in a way I never signed it. The D in Daniel had a strange loop. The pressure was wrong. It felt like someone had practiced until they got good enough. I called Ava. "I found something," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked it over the next morning and nodded. "We'll get a forensic document examiner. If this is what I think it is, it's more than unfair, it's unlawful. Don't confront her. Don't warn her. Just keep gathering." I felt a calm I hadn't felt since. The day she left, the last person I expected to hear from was Rachel, a friend who used to be close to Emily. We hadn't spoken in months. She asked if we could meet somewhere quiet. We sat by the window of a small cafe. She looked nervous, like someone standing at the edge of a bridge, deciding whether to cross. "Daniel," she said softly. I didn't know how bad it got. I didn't want to be involved. But I can't keep quiet anymore. My hands tightened around my cup. "What did she tell you?" "She didn't tell me everything," Rachel said. She bragged. She said she had a plan. That she and Alex were smarter. That you were too trusting to notice. I stared at the table. The words hit me like cold rain. "She showed me texts once," Rachel continued. "Not full conversations. Just pieces. She used them as examples of how controlling you were. But when I looked closely, they were stitched together, cut, moved, taken out of context. I didn't want to believe it then. I believe it now. Can you swear to that?" I asked. Rachel nodded. "I can do more. I have messages she sent me, dates, times, voice notes. She told me, once everything is in my name, I'm done. I didn't realize what she meant until it was too late." The cafe felt suddenly quiet, like even the room was listening. I swallowed hard. "Rachel," I said, "thank you." She sighed. "I'm not doing this to hurt her. I'm doing it because this isn't right." I walked out with a folder she'd prepared, screenshots, audio notes, and a timeline. A bridge I desperately needed had just appeared in front of me. From then on, my days had a rhythm. Mornings with Ava, afternoons with documents, evenings with backups, nights with timelines. I mapped every transfer. I charted every password change. I lined up every late meeting with phone records that connected to Alex's number. I collected calendar invites, parking receipts, and digital footprints the two of them never thought I'd see. It wasn't about anger anymore. It was about structure. About letting the truth breathe in clean air. Ava arranged the forensic review of the signature. We sent the property documents to an expert who didn't know my story, just the ink. We kept communication in writing. We time-stamped. We verified. I recorded a calm statement for myself each night. What I found, where I found it, how I saved it. Not because I needed to hear my own voice, but because clarity is easier to defend than memory. And every time, I felt that old ache. Every time I remembered the empty closet, the bare shelf, the missing photo, I reminded myself, this is not revenge. This is repair. A week later, an audio note from Rachel changed the weight of the whole case. It was Emily's voice, clear, confident, no hesitation. He'll never see it coming. He signs anything I put in front of him. By the time he notices, the house, the accounts, everything will be in my name. Alex says it's easy. Clean. He keeps telling me. We're almost free. I felt heat rise in my chest, then something else relief. It wasn't joy. It was the simple release of gravity when you realize you're standing on solid ground again. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I sat at the table, pressed play again, and let the words land. When I sent the file to Ava, she replied 2 minutes later, "Save 3 copies, offsite, this matters." In the quiet of my apartment, I looked at the growing case, the forged stroke of a fake signature, the dates that matched her disappearances, the emails and drafts, the payments, the ally who had the courage to speak, the voice note where Emily called her plan clean. I thought about who I had been at the start of all this, shocked, shattered, small. I thought about who I was now, steady, careful, awake. I stood at the window and watched the city settle into evening. For the first time in months, the silence felt like peace, not emptiness. I didn't want to shout. I didn't want to humiliate. I didn't want to become the very thing I was accused of. I wanted the truth to walk into the room on its own and leave everyone speechless. I closed the laptop, turned off the lamp, and whispered to the night clear, certain, unshaking, I won't destroy her. I'll let the truth do it. You have not enough humanizer words left. Upgrade your surfer plan. They say truth speaks softly, but when it finally walks into a room, everyone listens. That morning, I wasn't just walking into a courtroom. I was walking into the place where 2 stories would collide, hers and mine, and only one would survive the light of truth. The courtroom was colder than I expected. White walls, wooden benches, the kind of silence that makes every breath sound too loud. Emily sat across the room, confident, polished, composed. Her lawyer smiled like he already knew the ending. But for once, I didn't feel anger. I felt focused. My lawyer, Ava, leaned toward me and whispered, "Stay calm. Let the evidence speak." So I did. Because for the first time, I had everything I needed: the forged signatures, the bank trails, the emails, and the voice recording that told the whole story. The judge entered. Everyone rose. And then, it began. Emily's lawyer went first. His words flowed like poison wrapped in silk. He painted a picture of a broken marriage, of a woman trapped under a controlling husband, of a man who used power to silence love. He showed text messages, out of context, edited, rearranged to look like I was manipulative. He spoke of emotional damage, fear, and a woman trying to rebuild her life. Each word stung because they weren't just lies, they were crafted lies. And for a few minutes, I watched the judge nod thoughtfully, taking notes. It scared me. What if this was all they needed to believe her? But Ava didn't flinch. She waited. And when it was her turn, she stood up with quiet confidence. Ava's voice was calm, steady. "Your Honor, my client has been accused of manipulation. But the evidence tells a very different story." She began placing documents one by one on the table, neat, organized, undeniable. Emails from Emily to her lawyer months before she left. Bank statements showing money moved into her personal account. Property papers, identical to mine, but with a signature proven false by a forensic expert. The courtroom murmured. Emily shifted in her chair. Ava continued. This wasn't a breakup. This was a blueprint, written, dated, and executed step by step. She presented the timeline, the financial transfers, the document forgery, the sudden accusations, matching her lawyer's drafted claims weeks before she filed. And then Ava pressed play on the small recorder. Emily's voice filled the room. "He'll never see it coming. Once everything's in my name, we'll finally be free." The silence that followed was deafening. You could hear pens stop writing. Even Emily's lawyer froze mid-note. Ava wasn't done. She called Rachel to the stand. Rachel looked nervous, but her voice didn't shake. She confirmed everything: the messages, the voice notes, the nights Emily bragged about outsmarting me. Rachel said, "Emily told me she was transferring the house in her name. She said Daniel trusted her too much to notice. Emily's lawyer tried to object, but the judge allowed it. Every word was being recorded, every truth landing like thunder. Then Rachel looked at me, for the first time since all this began, and said softly, "He didn't deserve this." Emily's face turned pale. Her fingers clenched the table. And for the first time since she walked in, the mask began to crack. Ava moved in for the final blow, not with anger, but precision. "Mrs. Carter," she said, addressing Emily directly, "you stated that the property transfer was authorized by your husband. Yet the handwriting expert confirmed it isn't his signature. Can you explain that?" Emily hesitated. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering. She stammered, He must have signed it and forgotten." Ava tilted her head. "Forgotten? The date on this document is 2 months after he claims you left the marital home. How could he have signed it?" Emily blinked rapidly. Her confidence began to fade. She looked around the room as if searching for a way out, but there was none. The judge leaned forward, his tone suddenly sharper. "Mrs. Carter, I'll ask you again. Did you or did you not sign these documents under your husband's name?" Silence. The kind that doesn't need an answer because everyone already knows it. Her lawyer tried to stall, asking for a short recess. The judge denied it. Ava submitted the final piece, a statement from the forensic examiner confirming that the ink and signature were hers, not mine. The same pen, the same pressure pattern, the same forgery. I watched Emily's hands tremble slightly. Her eyes darted toward me, not with guilt, but disbelief that I'd caught her. For months, she'd told herself I'd never fight back, that I was too kind, too trusting, too broken to challenge her. But there I was, calm, silent, and unshaken, because truth doesn't scream. It just waits for the moment to be heard. The courtroom that once felt like a battlefield now felt different. People whispered. The judge took longer pauses. The lies that once sounded so convincing now hung heavy in the air. Exposed, Emily's lawyer tried to recover, talking about emotions, relationships, misunderstandings. But the damage was done. Ava ended with a single, steady line. "Your Honor, this isn't about vengeance. It's about integrity. The truth doesn't erase what's been lost, but it deserves to be seen." The judge sighed, leaned back, and looked at both sides. "I'll review the evidence and deliver a decision next week." The gavel hit the table. The sound echoed through the room like a final heartbeat. Emily stood slowly. Her confident smile was gone. Her hands were trembling. She turned to me for a moment, her eyes wide, searching, afraid. And I could almost read the thought written across her face. She was trapped by her own lies. As she walked out of the courtroom, the tension in the air was thick enough to touch. Ava placed a hand on my shoulder and said softly, "We're almost there, Daniel. Just let the truth finish what it started." Music fades, quiet piano returns, slow and reflective, and as I watched Emily disappear through the courtroom doors, I whispered to myself, justice doesn't need revenge. It only needs time. They say justice isn't loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't come with cheers or applause. It just arrives quietly, unshakably, when the truth has finally had enough of being buried. That morning, as I walked back into the courtroom, I knew it was the end. Not just of the case, but of the war between truth and deceit that had torn my life apart. The air in the courtroom felt thicker than before. Every seat was filled, lawyers, reporters, curious strangers. People who once whispered about me now waited to hear the final chapter. Emily sat at her table, her posture stiff, her eyes hollow. Gone was the calm confidence, the charm she once used like armor. Beside her, her lawyer shuffled nervously through his papers. And next to him, Alex, the man who helped her, looked like he wanted to disappear. My lawyer, Ava, placed a hand on my arm and whispered, No matter what happens, remember, the truth already won. I nodded, though my heart pounded like it was still unsure. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. He looked tired, maybe from the case, or maybe from the weight of what he was about to say. But before he could speak, Emily's lawyer stood. He asked to make a statement. His tone was sharp, defensive. Your Honor, my client wishes to clarify some inconsistencies in the previous testimony. I knew what was coming. Desperation. The kind that only appears when lies begin to crumble. Emily was called to the stand. She hesitated, glanced at Alex, then at the floor. Her hands trembled as she took the oath. Her lawyer began, Mrs. Carter, there are claims that certain financial transfers and forged documents were made by you alone. Would you like to explain your side? Emily's voice cracked. I didn't do it alone. I didn't mean for it to go this far. A wave of whispers rippled through the courtroom. Even the judge leaned forward. Ava's eyes locked on mine. This was it. The moment the lies started to fall apart, Emily continued, tears streaming down her face. It was Alex. He told me how to move the money without raising suspicion. He said it was safe, that it was just a transfer to protect our future. Alex's face went pale. He stood up abruptly. That's not true. You said you wanted it done. You said he'd never notice. The room erupted, voices, gasps, murmurs. The judge's gavel slammed down, echoing through the walls. Order in the court. But it was too late. Their alliance had cracked open for everyone to see. The people who'd built their story on lies were now turning on each other. Desperate to escape the truth that bound them, Ava rose slowly, her voice calm, cutting through the noise. Your Honor, we have documentation that supports what both of them are saying and contradicts every claim they made against my client. She handed over a folder, evidence gathered piece by piece. Email trails showing Alex moving funds from business accounts. Messages where Emily promised him a new life once everything was transferred. Bank records linking their names to an offshore account. And then, the recording again. Emily's voice, clear as day. He'll never see it coming. Once everything's in my name, we'll finally be free. This time no one moved. No one breathed. Even the judge looked shaken. He turned to Emily. Double quotes, Mrs. Carter. Do you deny that this is your voice? Emily lowered her head, unable to speak. He turned to Alex. And you, Mr. Reed, did you assist her in these transactions? Alex tried to respond, but his voice broke. I was just trying to help her. The judge nodded slowly, disappointment clear in his eyes. By stealing from her husband? Alex said nothing. After hours of arguments, silence returned as the judge took his notes. He read slowly, deliberately. Every word felt like a heartbeat. Based on the evidence, this court finds that the defendant, Mrs. Emily Carter, and her associate, Mr. Alexander Reed, deliberately falsified documents, transferred assets, and presented manipulated evidence in an attempt to defraud the plaintiff. He paused, looking directly at Emily. All properties, funds, and business assets are to be returned to Mr. Daniel Carter. Furthermore, his name is cleared of all prior accusations. A collective gasp filled the room. I didn't move. I didn't smile. I just exhaled slowly, deeply, like I was finally breathing again after months. Underwater. Emily's lawyer quietly packed his files and walked out without a word. Alex stood frozen, realizing there was nothing left for him to defend. He turned to Emily, whispered something, and left, leaving her alone. She sat there, eyes wide, as if the world had just shifted beneath her. The woman who once thought she controlled every move now had nothing left. No power, no plan, no partner. I looked at her for the last time, not with hatred, but with silence. Because I finally understood something. Revenge doesn't rebuild. Truth does. Ava gathered the papers and smiled faintly. "It's over, Daniel," but I shook my head. "No, it's just done." And I walked out. Outside the courthouse, the world looked the same. Cars passing, people talking, sunlight spilling on the steps. But inside me, everything was different. The weight I'd been carrying for months had finally lifted. Not because I'd won, but because I'd stopped fighting the wrong battle. I didn't feel triumph. I felt peace. As I walked down the courthouse stairs, reporters shouted questions. I didn't answer. What could I say? That justice isn't about punishment? That sometimes the quietest victories are the ones that matter most? Because deep down I knew the truth didn't just offend me. It freed me. Love can turn into betrayal. Trust can turn into weakness. But truth never changes. It just waits patiently until it's ready to be seen. Emily's lies fell apart on their own. Alex's greed faded with time. And I learned something I'll never forget. You don't need to destroy the people who wronged you. You just need to let the truth do its work. Because in the end, justice isn't loud. It just waits for truth to arrive. I thought the silence after the verdict would feel empty. But it didn't. It felt like a door opening. And fresh air finally finding its way in. The first morning back home, I made coffee the way I used 2 mugs by habit. I caught myself, laughed softly, and poured the second one down the sink. It didn't sting like I expected. It just felt real. The house looked different now. Not because anything had changed, but because I had. The shadows no longer felt like ghosts. They felt like space room for something new to grow. I walked through each room on purpose, touching the old table we bought secondhand, the window we once cleaned together, the hallway where we hung photos of our small victories. For months, this place felt like a museum of what I lost. Now it felt like a workshop for who I could still become. I started small. New locks, new passwords, new routines. I reopened the business slowly, one client at a time. I called the people who stood by me. I thanked them. I asked for nothing. When I sat down to work, my hands didn't shake the way they used to. Every email was clear. Every plan was calm. My lawyer, Ava, called to say congratulations. I told her the truth. I don't feel like I won. I feel like I came home. Money returned. Paperwork sorted. Reputation restored. But the best part wasn't any of that. The best part was the feeling that I could finally breathe without a weight on my chest. I wasn't trying to rebuild the old life. I was building a new one, simpler, slower, and honest. One evening, I opened a box I had avoided for months, photos from every season of our life. There we were, college smiles, the tiny apartment, the first office, the first home. I studied each image, expecting to feel anger. But instead, I felt gratitude. Not for how it ended, but for who those moments helped me become. In one picture, we're sitting on the floor with pizza and paper plates on moving night. Our future looked wide open. I stared at that image and realized something important. Back then, I wasn't naive. I was hopeful. There's a difference. And I don't want to punish the part of me that believed in goodness. I just want to protect it better now. I kept a few photos. Not because I wanted to hold on to the past, but because I wanted to honor the person I was when I took them. I put them in a drawer. A gentle goodbye. People ask if I've forgiven her. Forgiveness, I learned, isn't a gift you hand to someone who broke you. It's a door you open for yourself so you can walk out of a prison you didn't build. I don't excuse what she did. What she and Alex did was planned, sharp, and cold. But I also don't want to carry their choices on my back for the rest of my life. So I forgive the part of me that stayed too long. I forgive the part of me that didn't see the signs. And I forgive the hope that tried to save something already gone. Letting go is not forgetting. It's simply refusing to live on pause time, soft montage cues, light percussion with warm strings. I'm repainting the living room. Sunlight hits the wall, and the color glows. I'm jogging at sunrise. The city looks brand new and the streets are empty. I'm meeting an old client for coffee. We talk about new projects, not old rumors. I'm fixing the squeaky door that used to drive us both crazy. It swings smooth now. I'm at a weekend market, buying fresh flowers for a table that once held court papers. I'm planting a small tree in the yard. My neighbor waves. We talk about weather, not wounds. Slowly, my reflection changes. I'm not the man who lost everything. I'm the man who stood still in the storm and didn't break. One night I sit at the desk and write a letter I never planned to mail. Emily, I hope you find the peace you tried to steal. Not from me, from yourself. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not waiting for you to say sorry. I'm not waiting for anything. I'm moving forward, and that's the last thing I ever wanted from you. Permission. I don't need it. I'm free. I fold the letter, place it in a book, and slide it on the shelf, not as a memory, as a marker. A line between who I was and who I'm choosing to be. A few weeks later, Rachel drops by. We sit on the porch with tea and quiet laughs that don't carry any weight. She apologizes again for not speaking up sooner. I shake my head. You did when it mattered. She asks how I'm doing. I think for a moment and tell her the truth. I'm good, not perfect. Not healed overnight, just good. We talk about work, about travel, about small plans that feel big now. When she leaves, the porch light glows on wood we sanded years ago. It looks new again. Kindness used to feel like weakness to me after everything happened. Now I know better. Kindness is not letting someone's worst chapter become your whole book. So I choose to be kind to the cashier who's clearly had a long day, to the client who's nervous about signing a contract, to the neighbor who asks about the case without really asking. I don't need to retell the old story. I'm writing a new one every day. On a quiet night, I stand at the window and gaze at the hallway where our wedding photo used to hang. I remember how it felt to take it down. It doesn't hurt now. It just feels accurate, like a calendar turning by itself. I smile, not because I'm happy about what I went through, but because I'm proud of how I walked out of it still myself. If you're listening to this and your heart is heavy, hear me. You can live through a storm that tries to erase you and still come back as someone gentler and stronger. I learned that trust is not a shield, it is a gift. And when that gift is broken, you don't have to answer with rage. You can answer with truth. I didn't win by fighting louder. I found peace by standing still and letting the facts breathe. That's the quiet miracle of honesty. It doesn't sparkle, it doesn't perform, it doesn't rush. It simply waits until the noise gets tired. So here is what I carry forward, simple and clear. Trust is powerful, but when it's broken, don't seek revenge, seek truth. Because truth is the quietest form of justice. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real stories of betrayal, justice, and redemption. Every week, we bring you new tales that remind us, no matter how dark it gets, truth always finds the light. This is Voices of Revenge, where every ending brings a new beginning.